people, welcome back to Coffee Over Apples. My name's Steph, and here we are doing June wrap-up under the Brooklyn Bridge.
It could change the world.
Day in New York City, and I read I read about 7 books this month, and I'm so excited to come here and tell you about all of the wonderful books that I read. So first off, I just want to start by saying that we are currently in DumboPark, right next to the Brooklyn Bridge. It is a beautiful day here, and if you guys ever get the chance to come by here, it's definitely worth coming and checking out. The first book that I read this month was called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and this was recommended to me by one of my best friends in the entire world, and this book actually was very helpful. I feel like something that I really was able to take away from this book was the idea of really listening to someone when you talk to them. So I think that this book was really great because it showed how to handle various scenarios, whether that be for a business proposition or better communication with your spouse or better communication if you have children or just other important aspects of your life. And so I feel like one of the best parts of that was just understanding that sometimes when we're having a conversation, even though we think that we're listening to what the other person is saying, we're not always 100% listening because we may be using a lot of our brain power to put together a response to that person. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that what we're doing is efficient enough to say, are we really spending our time understanding what that person is trying to tell us versus thinking about how we're going to respond and then kind of multitasking in a way. So rather take the time to establish to that person whether you understood them correctly and say, this is what I understood you to say, is this correct? And by not only doing that does it allow you to double check your understanding, but it allows that person to really feel like they've been understood before you move on to the point that you want to relate to them. And so it'll just help the conversation flow a lot better, and I thought that that was really super helpful. And then the next book that I read this month was called The Immortal List by Chloe Benjamin. Now, I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars, and by the way, I did give the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People 5 out of 5 stars. But The Immortal List was a story about these 4 children growing up in New York City in the 1960s and following them throughout their lives. And when they were little kids, they went to speak to a fortune teller. The fortune teller gave them their dates of death, and so it's really kind of questioning whether we lead our lives, like if you were to know when you were going to die, was it a self-fulfilling prophecy, or is fate predetermined from when we're born? I didn't enjoy so much about this book was the fact that I didn't really enjoy the narration. Like every chapter would be focused on a different character, which is totally fine, but it was written in a way that we were following the specific thoughts of a specific character for about 90% of that chapter. And then out of nowhere, we would just kind of split to another character's perspective, all of a sudden be able to know what that other character is thinking, and then jump back to the first character, and then we wouldn't go back to that previous character's way of point of view for a very, very long time, or if at all. And I think that just sticking with one character would have just been the best thing. But something I did enjoy about it was different conversations that it had about religion, about LGBTQ rights in the 1960s and 70s, about immigration, about reaching your dreams and taking creative risks. And it did also have a lot of difficult conversations about whether activism was in full force and full effectiveness throughout the decades, or how has activism changed. And so one of the best conversations I thought I read in the book was from one of the side characters. His name was Robert, and I really enjoyed Robert's section. Robert is an African-American gay male in San Francisco in the 1960s, and talking to his partner, who is a white gay male, and talking to him about, is the gay community really accepting as far as the color of someone's skin? And so they moved there to where they went to because they wanted to be accepted for being gay, but then didn't realize that going into that community that there would still be these underlying prejudices, and that they were talking about the experiments that were going on with AIDS and treatments that were going on with AIDS, and as far as like prejudices in the medical field towards people of color. And it was just a very in-depth conversation, and I think that was really important to shed a light on for a lot of people. And so I feel like, and I hope that Chloe Benjamin, the author, really took the time to meet with other individuals outside of her own demographic and really interview them and talk to them about how they felt of what was going on during these different scenarios and situations. It felt like she really did her due diligence. So yeah, definitely 3 out of 5 stars. I felt was okay. The story I enjoyed, the discussions I enjoyed. It could have been probably a little bit shorter. The chapters were either extremely interesting or I was a little bit bored, and the narration kind of threw me off, but overall I think it was pretty good. And then later on, I listened to the audiobook for The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. Now, I went into this extremely excited because it's a book about a 27, 28-year-old woman, and she's a bookish person. She has a library. She works in a bookstore. Her life is all about like books and enjoying books, and she has a cat, and she is like part of a quiz team and all this other stuff. And I thought it was a character that I could really relate to. But I was so bored. I ended up DNFing this book at 95%, and that says a lot because I only got to 95% out of sheer will. I was so bored. I know that this book is for other readers, but this was just not for me. Abby Wexman, the author, is a good writer, and I would definitely pick up some books again by her in the future. Just this one didn't really do it for me. I feel like the whole trope of like, you meet someone and you both happen to know the same small circle of people, and you both keep talking about a big wedding that's coming up that happens to be on the same day in the same group of people. You don't think that there's any chance that you might end up going to the same wedding. It might be the same wedding. I mean, that was a little bit too cliche for me. And also, she's supposed to be a really educated person, but she keeps assuming that the people who are beating her team in the quizzing tournaments are dumb because they like sports. And she just had so many dumb prejudices that just seemed like they weren't founded in any reasoning. So yeah, I just didn't really enjoy it. Then I got an e-arc off of NetGalley called Thames by Sarah Anderson, and this was actually really cool. I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. It was a short 100-page graphic novel, and Sarah Anderson is the artist who does Sarah Scribbles comics, so if you've ever read those, you will probably be really familiar with her drawings. But this was an adult horror graphic novel, and it was really short and really sweet. It's a love story between a vampire and a werewolf, and it kind of plays off of tropes from horror classic novels. So if you're into that kind of thing, you will probably definitely like this. Even if you've never read Sarah Anderson before, I would definitely suggest picking up Thames. And then Also this month I am working on reading the Neon Genesis Evangelion Omnibus manga series for my favorite anime of all time, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and this month I read volumes 1 and 2, which is the first half of the manga series. And let me tell you, there is a reason that this anime has been rebooted 2 times. Not once, not twice, 2 times. And this anime is so good. It's a post-apocalyptic mecha sci-fi anime set in the year 2015. This anime is not for everybody. It does have a lot of religious references. It talks about creation. It talks about a lot of different things, but it's very action-packed and it is a psychological thriller. I love this and cannot wait to give you the next video installment in my anime versus manga series, which should be coming out hopefully at the end of this month. This is gonna have to be a 2-part video because this anime is that complex. Also this month I read one of my favorite books of the year, which is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I don't have to gush about it here because I did an entire drawing review video and I will leave the link for that up above so that you can check it out. I gush about it there. I absolutely loved it. It was adorable. You don't need to hear me talk about it. Just go click on that link and go watch that video. Alright guys, those are all the books that I read this month. I hope you enjoyed this video from the Brooklyn Bridge. Let me know where you think I should go next month for another future video because I try to do a different location for every wrap-up. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it, and I will see you next time. Bye!